Hi, my name's Bernard Besserglik. I'm English, as you can tell from my accent. I live in France, and I was also a long-term resident in Moscow, which makes me a citizen of the world, I guess. I was here in Moscow as a foreign correspondent for the French press agency, covering the news, covering the good news, the bad news, the economics, and to some extent, as much as I could, the culture. One of the things that most deeply impressed me about Moscow and about Russia generally is the richness of the culture. In specific areas too. England, for example, I think has a very strong culture in television and to some extent, to a large extent, also in theatre. For me, Paris is movies. Moscow, more than anything, Moscow is theatre because it has such a rich theatre scene. It seems to me there are almost more theatres here in Moscow than there are cinemas, certainly more than there are pubs. Any street corner you walk along in around the centre of Moscow, you're gonna come across a theatre. And much of my happiest time here in Moscow was going to the theatre. Even with my limited understanding of the Russian language, I was able to get a lot out of it, and I was deeply impressed by it. So much so that I was even inspired to turn my own hand to writing theatre. And believe it or not, it took me a long time, but I finally managed it. I wrote a musical, a comedy musical, about Russia, very much about Russia, called in fact A Night in the Kremlin. I'm not sure where the idea came from exactly, but one day I heard that Harpo Marx, one of the silent one of the Marx brothers, had visited Moscow back in the 30s, and I thought, wow, a Marx brother let loose in Moscow at that particular time. There's got to be something in that, and I imagined that he met Joseph Stalin, no less. And I did a bit of work looking up the historical background, looking up who was around at the time, and worked up a story a little bit along the lines of a Marx Brothers movie, in which Harpo rides to the rescue of a pair of star-crossed lovers, gets them out of trouble, and along the way meets up with Joseph Stalin and has a couple of numbers with Uncle Joe, who had a sense of humour, although he was a pretty nasty piece of work. But he also had a comic side to him as well. So that's something I'm still working on, still trying to find a market for, and quite possibly my dream would be to see it put on in Moscow. It's been put on in New York, so it's already made some headway, but the dream of dreams would be to see it put on here in Moscow, which for me in some ways is almost the capital of dramatic art.
Bernard, tell me just a little bit more about in New York, the production that was done in New York, where it was done, when it was done, just a little bit of detail.
I was invited to have it put on at the Midtown International Theatre Festival. A festival is a showcase format where a play is put on with its all the basics are there. It's a full performance, but with the least possible financial means. All the props are reduced to the essential. It was a stroke of great good fortune for me, as it meant that for the first time I was actually able to see the show performed, produced. It was put on its legs. I was also able to get the actors to agree to have it recorded, so I've now got a DVD which I can show out to potential producers with lots of money who could then, if my dreams were to come true, put on a much grander performance of it. But I already got a great kick at seeing it put on live. It was, as I say, it was a bare bones production, but it was all there, and it was good to see the imaginings of my mind, my imaginings of the particular time in Soviet history, tragic but with its funny side, actually acted out in the flesh in front of an audience who laughed and cheered at appropriate moments.
And show me then to finish up here, just show me this card.
This was the postcard we put out.